And then I crush it, tell my girl why I'm so bold. Until she trusts it. I'm like the world inside a snow globe. Rap for the memory.
So, yeah. I got a house. I worked really hard to get a house. Now, if it was just me, I'd have a Porsche and a townhouse. Like one of these nice 3-story downtown in the midst loft, cool, come in, look at my cool stuff. Maybe not even a bedroom, maybe like a studio loft bedroom type of thing on the top. I'd have like this brand new 911 stick shift, just hot, right? But I got responsibilities. I have always had sort of, you know, this is like a ghetto hood conversation. When I grow up, I'm gonna, you know, when I hit the lottery, when I get to the league, when I get my money, first thing I'm gonna do is buy my mom a house, but you know, for all the struggling, and I'm gonna hook that up. And I think that we believe that, especially like in my community growing up, you believe that that's a level of success, and I don't know that it's not. But it's such a goal. It's such a something that we cherish, you know, going towards. And if you are lucky enough to do that, there's this level of pride that accompanies it, right? Like, I'd rather spend the money somewhere else, but the blessing is that I'm able to do the things that I do, right? And so over the years, that's what I've done, right? I bought my regular house where I lived in, and then I was able to buy a second house, and I put my mom in it. And the first time I did that, it was like up by a lake, and you know there were 2 houses on the property, so I could go up there and hang out, and you know I can go fish and kayak and swim and do all the things, right? It's like a nice vacation. She liked it. She was retired, so she was up there hanging out. So I had offered provisions, right? I provided for her, but I still had my own sort of autonomous area. I still had my own spot. And there, you know, it didn't really affect me at all. I had money coming in. You know, I don't really want a Porsche. Not really. It's not practical, right? Like I like practicality. But I always thought, yeah, this is the image of what I would do if I didn't have any responsibilities. And eventually I paid that house off, right? So now all the money that I was putting into that house, I had extra cash. So what do you do with that? You know, by that time I had kids. So of course I'm not buying a Porsche. We've talked about that before. I'm going to buy something a little bit more practical, SUV, something good on gas. Now in the, you know, Northeast Ohio, all-wheel drive for the winter. There are things that I need to do, right? And what I found when I moved here, I sold, you know, houses. I moved everything here. This is my home base. So I have a home. My mom's in it. The kids are in it. You know, Vicky's parents, right? The idea is like, what are we doing for them? Everybody that I talk to that's in my generation, the Generation X generation, has found themselves in what they call this sandwich generation, where I'm taking care of, you know, the generation above and the generation below. And then you look around and think, well, why are we in this situation? Well, one, there's a return to different values based on, you know, an ideology shift based on finances, right? It makes more sense now to buy one big house or a piece of property with 2 or 3 houses on it than it does to send your parents to these retirement communities and you can't ever visit and there's no resources. And a lot of these parents at retirement age, they're able to watch kids. They're able to participate. They're able to help out in the home. It makes sense, right? A return to American values, a return to universal values, right? Most countries have multi-generational properties. So that's not that weird, but we start to look at why are we in this situation? And I think a lot of it, you know, Generation X talks about how tough we are and how we were latchkey kids and drinking out of the hose and all those different things. But you look at what was going on, what put all of our parents in these situations. And I think that for better or for worse, America had pretty much done the same thing as far as family goes up until the late 50s and the 60s when our parents decided, well, we're going to go out here and do it different. We're going to get divorced. We're going to have free love. We're going to have illegitimate children. That also coincided with an economic push to sort of eradicate minority families, right? To take men out of the household, and that will deteriorate the family, which will deteriorate the community, which will allow for, the powers that be to own these communities, right? To put people in prison, to desecrate and destroy them for financial gain. All of those things come at the same time, right? And so you have people who are fighting back against the status quo and now can't figure out how to build family and don't understand the value in the community of the family itself. And so therefore we have a lot of parents who did a lot of things based on feeling, right? I feel like I would like to divorce. I feel like I'd like to walk off from my family. I feel like they're all chasing the happiness, right? And now it's 40, 50 years later, and that chase of happiness has not provided a sense of stability in the elder years, right? Most of the people, pensions went away for the bulk of the country. And so you have a lot of people in the boomer generation that don't have money to live. They worked hard to get their health right? And so they are outliving what little savings they had. Life was a party in the 70s and the 80s, and that's what they were doing. And now, we're in 2024, and it's like, well, wait a minute, where's your responsibility? Why is it that I have so many friends whose parents live with them, not because the parent is helping, but because the parent is unable to do that, right? And then you have so many people who now, I think my generation has done it differently. We got divorced as well, but we're not keen on, like, I'm still with the kids, right? They're not even my kids, but I'm here and we participate, and let's kind of reconvene on this family unit, because my generation grew up in separated, divorced households. It's terrible. It's terrible. And the parents think, oh, you know what? I'm doing such a great job with my custody because it's 50-50. Me and my ex are working together. And I'm like, well, so your kid moves every 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is? Like, who wants to do that for the bulk of their life? Nobody wants to do that. And so us as a generation who experienced those things, if we were lucky enough to see the other parent, it's like, man, I'm not going to do that. I'm not putting my kids through that situation. And so now we have a scenario where we have to figure out, how are we going to manipulate this sandwich generation? How are we going to make it better for all of us? And I think there are some things, if you still, subscribe to these values that came out in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it's going to be a hard day. If you think that your parent can go to this retirement home and be successful, you're in for a bad day, because typically they don't have the money to last, right? And then so now you're paying for it. And typically we don't have money like that because we have 2-income households and we're just making it, and it's probably going to get worse. And so understanding, looking at the silver lining, looking at how do we incorporate the boomer generation? How do we incorporate this generation that's the grandparents into the fold of our lives and reprogram them? I think that in my scenario, I just started making the decisions. Like, listen, I'm not going to bail you out of things that you, as far as my mom goes, the things that she decides to do and then looks to me to, hey, are you the security blanket? Well, I'm not going to bail you out of those things if you're not listening to what I'm programming, because if I'm the safety blanket, then I'm allowed to be the person that sets up, so I don't have to be the safety blanket every single time. But if you're asking for me to show up and give you help, then I'm going to give you help under my conditions, right? And so, yeah, you can live here, but these are the rules. And I think it's funny, right, because your relationship changes. Like, my mom had all kind of rules when I was a kid that I had to sort of deal with, and now I have them. And they're enforceable. These are the things that we're going to do in order to be a successful family, right? Like when the kids play sports, grandparents don't go to every game. They go to a lot of games, but just because the grandparent wants to go to the game so that they feel like, look, I am a good parent, I've done some things for them to sort of pay back what they couldn't do when we were kids, does not mean it's appropriate for them to go, right? And I think that for us in that generation who are sort of looking around and providing for all these different people, it's imperative that we have some deliberate acts. It's imperative that we actually take a stand and go, well, this is how we're doing it, right? If you want to stay in your home as the parent, right? Your parent has a house that you grew up in maybe, and your parent isn't necessarily good at the home. You're going to have to make some decisions. It's time for you to go. If you want me to help you, you're going to have to move out of this house. We can sell your house, consolidate what we have, put a little apartment in the back, buy a bigger home, whatever it is that you can do in your financial situation. But let's incorporate the entire family. Because lest we forget, while Generation X is out there running around, hustling, trying to raise the kids, teach them to drive, don't cuss, don't say crazy things to people, pull the chair out. We're still going back to values, right? Open the door for your girlfriend, yada, yada, yada. It's hard for us to actually tell the children why it is that we're doing these things, right? Madeline, who's 14, had a conversation with her mother one day. Hey, why is it that Ramsey, every time we drive somewhere, if it's over an hour, this guy's got to go to Walmart or some grocery store and get snacks for like a week? It's just a day trip, or it's just an hour up, and I pride myself on getting the snacks. So it's confusing to the 14-year-old. So her mother had to tell her, listen, he didn't have the opportunity to have all those things growing up, and now he has a little bit of money and he can afford to do that, and that's his pleasure, right? He doesn't get all the pleasure in the world. Like, I still got to buy cars that suit the kids, and I've got to pay for the tools for them to play the sports, but if I can get some snacks, a little juice, cheese Danish, something for me, make me feel special, I'm going to do that, right? And I don't have the opportunity. I'm so busy moving and shaking. I never had the opportunity. It never even dawned on me to say, this is why I do those things. And how is the child supposed to understand these lessons? How's a child supposed to know you without understanding these lessons? And who better to explain, hopefully if they're accurate, to explain to the kid who the parent is and why they do certain things than that parent's parent, my mother, right? So when the kids ask, why does he do X, Y, and Z? Well, my mother has some answers, and she has time. She's not running around here doing what we're doing. So she has time to say, this is why, this is the history, this is where we come from, this is what we do. And I think that when we see our parents as valuable to the family, when we see them as an honor to be able to provide for and to be able to incorporate into the family, they stop being such a burden. Because the truth is, many of us feel like, I'm out here doing my life, and then here's this parent who's sitting on the side who has not prepared for the end of life, and now I have to take on that responsibility. It is dreadful, right? It is burdensome. It sucks. Like, I want to do other things. I don't want to have to be bothered with this. But when you see them as a value, when you see, okay, well, what can this parent offer to my kids? Well, you probably can't offer anything to me. I'm doing my thing. But like, to my kids, are they still able to garner some kind of information, logic, love, caring, something that's different from me, from this other person? And then it becomes, I appreciate the ability to incorporate my entire family into one fold, into one area, right? Lucky for us, we were able to find acreage and then design homes where you go, okay, well, this is my grandmother's house and this is our house. It's 10 feet away, but they're separate, but close, right? Separate, but connected. And I think if we were all able to do that, since we're the consumer, right? We're able to do whatever it is that we want, right? We don't have to be beholden to what these manufacturers tell us. We don't all need a townhouse. We don't all need a single family home, right? Can we find places and build our own thing? Can we find things to design where we can incorporate the family, which takes the financial pressure off a little bit. It takes a little bit of familial pressure off. And then we don't feel like we are sandwiched between these two generations, as if we're just taking care of invalid parents that are unable to add value to our lives. Because let's face it, I don't know of a generation that has experienced it the way our generation did. I think like the boomer generation, the silent generation, our grandparents that were in front of our parents, they did okay. They did okay with money. They did okay with buying a home. They did the formula: go to work, buy the house, stay married for 70 years, don't get divorced, thus and so. They were building quality things in America. Their life was not easier, but definitely more programmed, right? Their parents, same life. Their parents, same life. So I think our generation is the first to have sort of the fallout from an experiment, a social experiment on how we conduct ourselves in America. Our parents' generation was the first to depart from that formulaic existence. And now, so we have to figure out what to do. And we've never had roadmaps, right? We've never had roadmaps on how to get married, how to make a relationship, how to do end of life, how to, work and do a bunch of things. None of us have. So we're all figuring it out as we can go. And we're all feeling, I think I'm almost 50, right? And we're figuring out at this stage, the pressure that surrounds like how to deal with your family. What do you do with your parent who's not ready? Do you just leave them out? Like, I'm not willing to do that, right? I'm not willing to have my mother just be homeless. That's not that she would be, but it's not worth it to do that for me. So anyway, think about, how do you parent in a sandwich generation? How do you sort of put out or allocate funds, time, and energy to each part of this group, as well as understand with your partner that this is all temporary, right? God forbid, it's horrible to say, but your parent, they're going to die. Your kids, they're going to move out. And if you did it correctly, you have a partner that understands we're going to be left together by ourselves, and it's going to be glorious. We're not going to have buffers in the house. And I think that's what happens a lot of times with us, with these relationships. You're in a relationship, you sort of drift, but it's okay because you have the kids in the house, the parents or something. So there's a buffer. You don't really have to address the relationship you have with your partner. But you have to understand, both of you have to kind of be sized up. Listen, our parents suck. The kids are here. They're busy. It's busy and it's temporary. And then I'm going to know you for 30 more years after they're gone. Just me and you hanging out. So we better be dialed in and understand this program and figure out, like I say, how to allocate everything to everybody, including each other, right? And this is the hard part of life. It's the most busiest part of life with the least amount of resources that go to you personally. Probably the most that you're ever going to make with the least amount of access personally. So I don't know. Stay in there. You're not alone. Everybody's parent sucks. They show up and they're here. It is what it is. And let's just keep moving forward. All right. Have a great day. Talk to you later.
With a certified limp and watch me work. Yet I'm standing right here. She see I'm all up in the front and I'm managing beer. And with my toothpick Twizzlers and my cap turned back. Shell toe Adidas with that hat to match a nigga. White tee stay crisp and push pause on your motherfucking history. Hey, and back so